I ended up losing the job that I had in New York, and I discovered the option of teaching English in Thailand. So I sold all my stuff, got my security deposit back, and that was how I funded my first one-way plane ticket to Thailand. There's no way that I'm going back to the corporate world, and 60 something countries later, I'm still on that trip.
Boom, what is up, guys? Today I am joined by Christa, who has a pretty interesting story. You've been a digital nomad for, I think, 9 years. I was reading your story, so I'm very excited to dive in of what that's looked like for you and how you got to that point. Some of the amazing places you've traveled to, the people you've met. Yeah, really excited to dive in. So thank you for jumping on.
Thanks for having me. Excited for the combo.
Awesome. So let's start off. How'd you get into becoming a digital nomad?
Actually, the truth is that I kind of fell into it a little bit by accident. So, yeah, basically I was working in New York City from 2010 to 2013. It was my first job out of college, and really thought that this was it. Thought that living in New York was the dream. And for a little while it was my dream. And then I got the classic case of burnout, was kind of questioning, how come I can't take longer than 2 weeks vacation? Is this how it's going to be until I retire? I don't know if this is really what I want. So, long story short, I ended up losing the job that I had in New York, and I just couldn't really bring myself to find another job in the city. So after doing a lot of research on blogs, because there wasn't really Instagram at the time, or there were no influencers, anybody showing us the way. So I discovered the option of teaching English in Thailand. So I sold all my stuff, got my security deposit back, and that was how I funded my first one-way plane ticket to Thailand. So then I'm in Thailand, and then I am meeting all these people where they're like, oh yeah, we have a similar story. This is why we're here. This is where we're from. And I just was really mind blown, because I feel like when I was in New York City, everybody that I told them my crazy plan to move to Thailand to, they just looked at me like I had 3 heads. So it was really reassuring being in Thailand that, yeah, that I wasn't alone, and that I wasn't a total lunatic for wanting to have this kind of lifestyle. And basically, after just getting a taste of that, I was like, there's no way that I'm going back to the corporate world. I just can't bring myself to do it. So when it was time to leave Thailand, I was looking for jobs that I could work from home, because I was like, all right, where am I going to move next was actually the next question that I had for myself. And then in these work from home jobs, which I thought would be temporary, my boss, the guy who hired me, he was like, yeah, we don't really care where you are. You can be in Boston, where you're from. You can be in New York. You can be in Malta. You can be in Thailand. And then I was just like, wait, I don't have to go home. And I had already sold all my stuff. So I just basically stayed abroad, and 60 something countries later, I'm still on that trip.
Wow, that's incredible. I find it's such a common story for a lot of people who have started to live this kind of lifestyle, right? They come from a corporate world where they're stuck in that system of just working 9 to 5 and not really connected with anyone, and kind of just living this miserable life, right? And then all of a sudden you go and experience this freedom, and you just don't want to go back, and you find a way to make it work, whether that's going and getting a remote job, or starting a business, or freelancing, or finding some way to make income to support yourself so you can live this lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
I really want to touch on, how you found it, connecting with people and finding your tribe while you were traveling, right? What was it like to find those people, and how did it feel to finally be seen and heard and connected with these people?
Yeah, great question. So, I think it was my first few months of Thailand where I met all these other people that they had made the same decisions as I did. And then I was hooked at that point. Yeah, I think when I was just living in New York City, I just really felt like my dreams were always a little bit too out there, and were weird. So once I was finally around people that actually had similar dreams, it feels so good to be seen, of course, and to feel like you're not alone. So that was amazing. I lived in Thailand for 2 years, but then once I started nomading, then it was a little bit different because now this is still there's like crazy rooster going off. I don't know if you can hear that. Sorry. Yeah, so it's amazing once you finally find people that resonate with you. And I think when I was living in New York City, I just didn't find that resonance with people. It always felt like my dreams were a little bit too out there and that nobody really got it. And so, yeah, that just doesn't really feel good. But then when I moved to Thailand and I met all these other people, I was like, okay, this is my community. These are my people. I'm never going back to that. But then when I did leave Thailand a couple of years later and I was a nomad, now I needed to start the process again. And I needed to start the process like every single time that I went to a new destination. So if I'm honest, the first like 6 months of my nomading journey were pretty lonely. I just didn't know where to find people. I didn't know how to find people. I didn't even really know who I was looking for because actually at the beginning, I didn't even know the term digital nomad. I just kind of started doing it without even really knowing what I was doing. So, and again, this is still like really early days where there wasn't a lot of information. But when I did discover the term digital nomad, now I started to be able to Google like how to meet other digital nomads. And a really pivotal point in my journey with like meeting people and connecting with people was I discovered this company called the Wi-Fi Tribe, which is really similar to Remote Year. And there's a bunch of other companies like it now, but basically they get a house and in some country. At the time it was Nicaragua, and they just only invite other digital nomads. So I was like, this is a very expensive flight for me to get to Nicaragua right now from Ecuador, but screw it, like I'm going because this is what I need. So yeah, then I found myself living in a house with these 12 other people who all worked online, that were all just living the nomadic lifestyle. And yeah, I'm still really, really good friends with a couple people from that house to this day, and in touch with a lot more of them. And that was kind of, I feel like, the beginning of the snowball of once you start meeting a few other nomads, then you start making travel plans together. And then you'll be in a cafe and you'll like see somebody working at really odd hours and you'll be like, what are you doing here? What's the Wi-Fi password? And then you start talking and then you realize that they're a nomad too. And I've met a lot of friends that way. Anyway, long story short, it's like now pretty much every single person I interact with in my life is a nomad, like literally, because I just have been continuously surrounding myself by more and more people that live this lifestyle. So yeah, it gets
I
easier
love
over
that.
time.
I love that. I love that. It's so good. And it's so powerful having those connections and being able to make those connections, right? And like relating on some kind of level. So yeah, it's like so beautiful having that. Like I know for me being here in Bali, like meeting so many different people, it's always like people who are very similar, you know, they've like come from a corporate background, then finally made the decision to book a one-way ticket and they never looked back. And that seems to be like the common story. And so, yeah, I'd love to ask you, like, what do you find is the most common story, I guess, that you've seen with most digital nomads?
Well, a lot of people start in Thailand, like I did, so that's always hilarious. And yeah, I think, I don't know, people just get to this point where they're like, I literally cannot do this anymore. They just get burnt out beyond the point of return. They just can't. Like they get so, I don't know, so frustrated by feeling trapped in their work environment. And I think the pandemic actually really showed a lot of people how bad it really was, because it's like, for me, before, I mean, I was nomading way before the pandemic. So I might have been maybe like, I don't know, 1 in a million people. So I was constantly meeting all these people that they were like, wait, you're doing what? Like, you're working from home, but from anywhere? This doesn't make any sense. And they were just really confused. They never heard of the concept before. But then the pandemic showed everybody the concept. And so I think once people know what their options are, then they start to question what they currently have. And now they have a bit more freedom and autonomy to choose in their mind anyway. And yeah, I think it's really just you just have to decide. I think once you just decide this is what I want, I'm not dealing with this corporate bullshit anymore. You ultimately eventually find a way to make it happen, but you really do need that decision. So I guess everybody just has some kind of intense burning desire.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the pandemic like flipped everything on its head, you know, just showed everyone that remote work is totally a thing. Like many
Mhm.
people didn't even realize that that was possible. And now, like, so many companies just went remote and gave people that opportunity to work from home. And it was like a normal thing for so long. And then coming out of that, do you feel like there's a lot more opportunities now for remote work? Do you think that's a more common thing and easier for people to get into?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, so for me, like I I don't really know what the job landscape is like. I didn't even introduce myself to any of the listeners, but I'm a digital nomad coach. So I help people become digital nomads. It's literally what I do now for my business. And I very intentionally, like anytime somebody's like, how do I get a remote job? I'm like, I'm not helping you with that because for me, um, being a nomad means that you want freedom and having a job, even if you are able to work from anywhere, you're still not really free. So, yeah, anyway, and I have no idea what like jobs are available right now and if it's more or less than there were before. But in terms of like, has it ever been easier to build a business remotely? No, like it just keeps getting easier and easier and easier. The whole world accepts people working remotely now. So if you're just like, I don't know, the way that I teach my clients is I just say, pick one skill. What's a skill that you have? It could be TikTok. Like TikTok could be your skill. A lot of people are killing it making money with TikTok. So if you are amazing at TikTok, just go or offer some TikTok related service to someone. No one's going to expect you to come into their office to do the job. They're all gonna know that you're gonna be doing it from wherever you are. And then they're gonna pay you online and it's just easy. It's like easier than ever.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
yeah.
Like freelancing is like become so popular now. Like there's sites like Fiverr, Upwork, all these sites you can easily get freelance jobs on. Like there's just yeah, there's so much opportunity in the space right now for remote jobs like you know, starting a business, freelancing, like all these different things that you can do. And it's so beautiful like to have that opportunity. But like you were saying, it really just comes down to the decision, like deciding that, hey, this is the life that I want to start to live, you know? And but like without that decision, none of these opportunities matter because you're not going to take action on them. So I think that's really the important part. And so I guess could you speak to someone that's listening to this, say they're stuck in a 9 to 5 job in the corporate world, and they really want to start living this lifestyle, but they're not sure what that first step looks like and how they can make that decision because they have debt, maybe they have a mortgage, maybe they have all these things keeping them in this place, right? So maybe you could speak to that a little bit of like, what would you say is that first step that people can take to start this journey towards living this lifestyle?
Mm-hmm. That's a really great question. There are so many factors involved with freeing your life. I mean, when I say that, like the vision that I get behind my eyes is literally just like someone breaking free from these shackles. And it's like one by one, all these chains start to break. But there's like so many chains. It's not
Yeah.
usually just one thing that's holding people in place. Like one thing is your physical stuff. So, I mean, for me at the beginning of my story, I sold all my stuff. I got my security deposit back. I didn't have any physical weight keeping me in New York anymore. So I had to cut that. But that was like a whole project in and
Yeah.
of itself. So I think the first step is probably it probably requires somebody to just assess like what is their current situation and what is keeping them there. Um Awareness of what's really keeping you stuck is the only way that you're going to actually be able to change it because the truth is that like if someone there might be someone out there who already has a remote job and they want to be a digital nomad. Well, it's like, okay, well, what's actually stopping you then? And then you really need to get clear on what that is. So if it is a mortgage, then okay, your first step is figure out how to relieve yourself from that mortgage. Maybe it means Airbnb out your place, or I don't know, maybe selling your house. Then what are you going to do with that money? So that's a whole thing. But if somebody doesn't have a remote job, I would say the first step is just to take an inventory of your skill set and figure out what's going to be the fastest way for you to leverage your existing skill set to start making money online. I think that what I do this is a key part of what I do in my work actually, is I analyze people's skill sets and then share with them what I think is they're going to be their fastest path. So something that I think is really important to say is that when you are going into online entrepreneurship, you can't expect to be absolutely killing it and having like the business of your dreams within a few months. Like, you're going to need to start somewhere. So where I recommend that people start is by offering some kind of service. And then that way they can get all their things set up, like get all their ducks in a row, like again, figure out the mortgage thing, have those difficult conversations with your family and friends, feel the feeling of making money online. And then you can turn your business into whatever it is once you're already in Thailand. Yeah.
Just wing it, basically. That's the advice. Well, not necessarily, but I think it's a little bit of that. Like, you've kind of got to take a bit of a risk, you know?
For sure.
Because yeah, like there's so much attachment, right? There's so much attachment to everything. You're so attached to the place you're in, the friends you have, the work, the job that you're doing, the house that you have, the car that you bought. Like, all these things that just create attachment and stop you from living a life of freedom, right? Which is like ultimately what I think most of us want, is just a life of more freedom where we can choose to live how we want. We have the time, the money, the location freedom to be able to choose how we live this life. I think that's what a lot of us desire. And I think that's what being a digital nomad really gives you. Yeah, cool, you get to travel and whatever, but I think digital nomad means more about freedom, right? That's really how I interpret it. It's like the freedom to live life how you choose. That's kind of how I define it, more than just like someone who travels and works, right? Yeah, and that's why I got this tattoo, because it's like, for me, one of the most important things, I think, freedom. So I'd love to hear from you, like what your thoughts are around that, around the concept of freedom and what that kind of means to you.
I 100% agree that being a digital nomad is about freedom, because it doesn't have anything to do with how far you travel or where you are. Am I frozen?
No, you were before, but I think you're good now.
Okay. I'm just going to actually pause. Oh, okay. There you are. Okay. Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that being a digital nomad is only about freedom, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the kind of work that you do. It doesn't have to do with where you are. It doesn't have to do with how long you spend anywhere. I mean, I was a digital nomad when I was living out of my suitcase, traveling to a new country every other week. And I'm still one now, even though I've been living in Bali for a few years and I have a dog. Like, I still am, because the second that someone is like, hey, do you want to come to this event? It's literally on the other side of the planet. And you're going to probably need to take like 3 or 4 weeks off from like your day-to-day activities. I can say yes. And I did that twice this year. Literally, I heard about an event that was happening in Miami a week before, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going. Like, I'm going because I can. And then what I did, because I had a whole bunch of calls the week after the event, I just went to Mexico City to take my calls from there, because it was just an easier time zone. And I'm able to make those decisions, and I'm literally free. I don't have to ask anybody for permission. If I want to move somewhere, if I am sick of Bali, I can. So yeah, I agree. It's completely about freedom, but you do need to see. And okay, so to go back to your question too, like, is the answer really just winging it? I think that it's intentionality. I think that's really what it is. It's like awareness, inventory, intentionality, and yeah, then just starting to take action.
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful. Very, very powerful. I think that's a great place to wrap this thing up. I would love to hear from you, like, what's any final thoughts or any last things you would love to share with people? who are maybe thinking about becoming digital nomad, or even people who are already digital nomads? Like, yeah, what's like those last final thoughts you'd love to throw in?
Yeah, my last thoughts are that you can do it. It doesn't really matter what your background is. It definitely doesn't matter what your education is. It doesn't matter how many skills you do or don't have. This year, I recently helped a farmer become a full-time digital nomad. I helped a seamstress, like a literally a young woman who was working in a sewing factory. Like that's what she was doing. And now she's a full-time nomad as a brand designer. The farmer, he went into social media. Another guy who worked in heavy construction, he went into marketing funnels and just another woman who was older and she like worked in grocery stores went into podcast management. So these are that's just like a small sampling of the clients that I've recently worked with, and if they can do it, you can do it. Especially if you have ever worked in an office environment, then you absolutely can do it. So it's again just a matter of like figuring out the first few steps of what is it that you're actually going to do, and just not taking no for an answer. It's your life and you deserve to be free. We all deserve to be free. We've all just been fed into this lie that we shouldn't or that we can't, but we can. We are living proof. So yeah.
Exactly. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission. Thank you so much for jumping on, Christa. Where can people find you online and connect with you?
They can find me at Christa Bella Travels on Instagram and TikTok. Or if you're curious about how I can personally help you figure out what your remote career should be, then you can message me at Digital Nomad Life Academy on Instagram.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing some insights. Really enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, stay tuned for the next one, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.